Welcome to this mini episode of the While She Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. I want to do a special episode of the show today, focusing on a project that's really special to me. It's Craft Industry Alliance, a trade organization that I co-founded with Kristen Link of Sew Mama Sew. And I have Kristen here today to talk more about it. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Abby.
Hi, thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
So Kristen and I launched Craft Industry Alliance in October of 2015, and we've had just an amazing first 8 months or so of the organization. We have over 800 members, which is just fantastic. We are about to publish the 18th issue of our digital journal, and we've held 6 webinars. We have active discussions going on every day in our online forums, and we feel like the community has really coalesced, and we're incredibly excited about the solid foundation that we've built. So we wanted to make sure that all of the podcast listeners to this show knew more about Craft Industry Alliance and what it could offer you for your own business. So Kristen, I'm going to let you start off with the big question, which is, what is Craft Industry Alliance?
Okay. Well, Craft Industry Alliance is a trade organization for craft professionals. Just like, nurses have a trade organization and realtors have a professional trade organization, we felt that craft professionals should also have a trade organization that represents the issues that they're facing and where people can get together and talk about common goals and common educational needs, things like that. We include makers, designers, like fabric designers, pattern designers, suppliers, shop owners, fabric shop owners, yarn store owners, things like that. Also, pro bloggers. And, by makers, we're talking about people who make one-on-one and sell on Etsy or, are actually in small scale manufacturing. We wanted to reach all crafts. Even though Abby and I come from sewing backgrounds, we wanted to make sure that what we're doing encompasses yarn and paper and, jewelry, whatever, because there's so much crossover and there's a lot of people that are doing a little bit of everything. And there's also a lot of common goals and issues. We felt like those people in the different sectors of the craft industry have more in common than they do differences. So that's kind of the basic background of what we are.
Yeah. And, all of us have to do bookkeeping, for example, and all of us are concerned with Google Analytics, for example, and all of us need an Instagram presence. And, all of us are concerned about, succession, like what happens when we're ready to either sell our business or when we no longer want to run our business, right? All of us have so much in common, whether we are a polymer clay jewelry maker or we design rubber stamps or, or we're like me, which is a sewing pattern designer, or like you, a pro blogger. If we're in the crafts industry, we all need to attend a trade show or maybe want to teach. So we have so much in common that we really felt that bringing all of those craft professionals together in one space, we could learn from each other and grow together. So I'm excited about, and one of the things for me too is I'm learning about all of the needs and issues and concerns of people in all of the different sectors. And so that's been fascinating for me and exciting too. So
yeah, that one thing, I think that it's been really good for me to be really interested in some of the topics that we're covering, but not having the motivation for Sew Mama Sew to kind of explore some of the topics that I've written about. But, now I finally have a place to kind of do some research and some interviews and write about it. So that's been really good for me too. Just, a contingency plan. That's been something that was on my agenda for a long time. And I've just never really had the time or motivation to write about it. until, I'm like, this is really something that's really important to our industry. So I'm going to research and write about it for Craft Industry Alliance.
Yeah. And I wrote an article recently sort of along that same line around like, how do you sell your website? Like if you have a website, how do you sell it? And then if you are just getting started and you want to buy a website, like how do you go about buying a website? And I interviewed Tara Gentile about that and a bunch of people and found out so much about how to do that. And it really actually is fascinating. And again, like you said, it's something that I've always wondered about that I think very few people really write about and explain. It's certainly not among craft bloggers that I've seen, but it's something that, is helpful to know about. And now we have a place for all of that information and archives to live so everybody can access it, which I think is so, so good. So,
yeah. And a lot of our members too are now, writing for us and they're coming up with those things. Like they're just topics that we haven't even thought of that they're coming up with that they're really interested in. So it's cool to have their feedback about what they want to both write about and learn about.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes those questions come up in the forums and people help each other too, if it's not even just the whole article, but just a question. So that's been terrific. And let's just talk a little bit about how this whole thing got started. So I think it was maybe 11 months that we were planning Craft Industry Alliance from the time that we sort of first settled on the idea to the launch date in October. And so we knew each other. You actually had been a guest on the While She Naps podcast, and we knew each other from both of us being in the sewing, blogging area and kind of guest posting on each other's blogs and that kind of thing. And you were kind of interested in maybe starting a conference maybe, and I was interested in starting like an industry newsletter of some kind, and we started talking together and came up with this idea of a trade organization that could eventually encompass all of those things and much more.
Yeah. I think that, it was interesting that we were both kind of tackling like I saw this void of information, solid information for entrepreneurs. My take was like, let's do a conference, and you saw that same kind of void, but you're like, let's do a newsletter. So we were able to kind of, we're both tackling the same problem or trying to tackle it and thinking about it anyway. And then we, once we started talking together, we kind of evolved into something that I think is better. And it involves actually both of those things at some point. We'll have a conference. Yeah,
exactly. And so one of the first things that we had to work on was the name. And obviously we came up with the name Craft Industry Alliance, but it took a lot to figure out the right words to describe what we were trying to do. And I think we kind of settled on the coolest name ever because we've got this awesome acronym.
Yeah.
Which is the CIA.
Definitely.
So people love being a member of the CIA, which is really cool. And we're thinking of maybe get some pins or something about it so people can show off their CIA membership. And then we spent some time building the website. And we knew that we wanted to have a digital journal, which we have this journal that comes out twice a month. And so that was a big piece of this, was to have almost like an online magazine. And then we knew that we also needed forums. And so forums is a whole other layer of complexity when you build out a website. And then we also wanted to be able to conduct webinars and have recorded webinars for members to access anytime. So that was another piece. And then it's a membership site. And so we needed to figure out how to set up a membership site. So Kristen, actually, really, you took the took the reins on all this stuff on a lot of this stuff because I am not the most technically savvy person, and so we spent a lot of time. You spent a lot of time, more than me, building the website.
Yeah, well, remember when we were like before we even got to the point where we were building the website and stuff, we were like working on our business plan, and we were interviewing people, and we were talking about like what we want the organization to be. And we interviewed a guy that was trying to launch the same kind of thing for the lingerie designers industry. Remember that?
Yes.
But then it never got off the ground. Like that was probably like the worst interview for me because because they ran into so many stumbling blocks. And here I am like in the middle of like trying to select membership software, and he's like, it's just too complicated. We just haven't got it off the ground yet.
I know he had built built the digital journal part, right? Like he had like the content for the lingerie. Yeah, it was like for lingerie shop owners and the lingerie design. It was like the lingerie industry or something. And so he'd gotten like the content piece, but yeah, he was like, yeah, I wanted to do forums and a membership site too, but yeah, it was complicated. We're like, oh no.
Oh no, I know. So he was the nicest guy, but that really like made me nervous. But it all came together. I think we were both looking at a lot of like reviews of membership software, and then Todd from Oliver and S really gave us some solid advice about forums and plugins to like kind of prevent spam and things like that. So those pieces kind of fell into place. But I think that as far as the software we chose, things work pretty well. We've had to make some changes to get everything to work exactly the way we wanted to. And one of the problems, I think, is like every time you update a piece of software or update a plugin or update your blog theme, that has the potential to impact other elements of your website. But so far, so good, I think.
Yeah. And one of the other keys for us was bringing on Lindsay Bergevin, who does our graphic design, and Nicole Stevenson, who does our illustrations, and she designed our logo as well. And so they've been instrumental in helping us to create the look of a handmade site that is also easy to navigate, easy to use, looks professional. So those visual elements were really important to us because we have a really visual community. And so I'm really happy that we were able to connect with them. And so let's just talk a little bit about kind of what the site includes. So when you join Craft Industry Alliance, like what do you get?
Yeah, well, I think that our biggest piece is the journal that comes out every other week. We do 3 kind of full-length articles written by either Abby or I, and then usually 2 other writers that are contracted and paid and everything. And then also that includes a resource, and our resource is anything from a printable to a spreadsheet. We've done some images, or just something that's I don't know how you describe it, and usually it's relevant to something else would you say that?
Sometimes it's relevant to one of the articles, like we did when you were talking earlier about the contingency plan article. We did an editable Excel spreadsheet to help you come up with your contingency plan. So that was definitely connected, but sometimes that resource is, for example, one of my favorite ones we did was like a big list of craft book publishers. So if you would like to pitch a craft book, we link to every craft book publishing house that we could find, which is a really big, long list, and directly to the person that you would pitch to, or to find out what the requirements are for your query letter or your proposal. And we did the same thing with craft magazines. So if you would like to get published in a craft magazine, whether you're a scrapbooker or a jewelry maker, or you work in clay, or wherever you work in, we have a huge list of all of the craft magazine publishing houses and the editors' contacts, so you can reach out and pitch your idea. So those kinds of really valuable resources that, yes, you could spend hours and hours finding those names and things yourself, but we've got it all in one place. It's updated and it's right there for you. And for this coming one, we're actually working on trade shows and conferences. And we did a list of these about 6 months ago, and now we're doing an updated list, upcoming craft trade shows and conferences. And again, it's just so nice to be able to have that all in one place, print it out, or access it whenever you need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had several people tell us like the resources are their favorite part every week. It's like, you just can't, you don't have the time for that kind of research.
Yeah, we just did one of whole-sale suppliers. Like, where do you go to buy like all the wholesale stuff if you want to either use it in your own making because you need tons of beads, or if you're going to be reselling, like I sell supplies, in my online shop. But where do you go to buy those things wholesale? And we have a huge list of wholesale suppliers. So those things, like, it's really hard to source that stuff. It takes so much time.
Yeah.
I know from experience. So I'm so proud that we're able to provide that to the community and let everybody sort of have an easier time with some of those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So, okay, membership includes this journal, which, by the way, I'm also so proud that we're able to pay writers.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yeah, it was always really important for us to kind of practice what we preach.
Yes, and we did a lot of research too about like what's the going rate for writers on the web, and we came up with what I think is a really fair wage for people who write these articles for us. And it's also allowed us, I feel like, to get the best voices because we're able to pay people. We're not asking people to work for free.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so we have that. And then we have the forums, which we talked about. And within the forums, we have people can just start a thread of general business kinds of questions that they might have. And then there's also kind of business-to-business connections. It's almost like a classifieds area where you can say, I offer this service or I'm in need of this thing, and people can connect. And then we have these specialty groups. So do you want to talk a little bit about like what the groups are?
Well, before I do that, I wanted to, I don't want to forget that when I was at Quilt Market recently, I talked to a couple people who said that they've made business-to-business connections through our forum. Like Vanessa Wilson, I think she hired a writer.
She hired a VA, through our forums.
Mm-hmm. And then somebody else said that they'd connected with like a graphic designer through our forums. So I think that's awesome. Success. That's exactly what we want that to be like. And then our groups, we've got a couple groups going that are, we've got like an Etsy group, and then there's kind of a Friday bookkeeping club. And this is something that we're still working out. Like, how do we make this work when people are already on social media and stuff? So really, I think that that's still in the process, but we're making improvements with, the way that we have the forum structured, and the way that we've got our groups working, and we've already talked about a couple different ways to make those groups more active. So,
Okay. And then we've also got webinars, which I mentioned earlier. And I just wanted to give a flavor of what some of the webinars have been up until now. So one of my favorites, we had Samantha Barnes, who is an expert on Google Analytics. And she did a webinar for us. It's a 45-minute presentation with time for questions at the end about Google Analytics in a way that we can all understand. And she actually used my website as the example. And so it was really like down to earth, easy to understand. Like, here's how you set up a super simple dashboard with the basics that you need so you can track how you're doing. So that was one of my favorite webinars that we've had so far. And then this most recent one we had just last month in May, we had Heather Grant from the Modern Quilt Guild present on how to become a professional craft instructor, since she looks at all of these different applications to teach at QuiltCon. Then she also looks at all of the student evaluations at the end of each of the classes. So she really knows what it means to be a good teacher and a good craft instructor. And she shared that knowledge with us in a webinar last month.
Yeah. I think that what I like about the webinars and like the thing with Heather was that it's, it's nice to hear her voice, and you can kind of inject little asides in ways that you can't when you're writing something. Like, she could probably write a really great 10-point article about pitching a class idea. But to kind of hear like her say like, well, this is really what was wrong with this, and just, talk about things in ways, or talk about how much money to ask for, or what kind of things to include that you want from that, whether you want a hotel room or airfare or, meals, things like that. I don't know. I just thought that was really valuable to hear from her directly what's
Yeah.
reasonable, what's not reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she was able to talk a little bit about money in an upfront way. It was good. It was really, really good. And I think that's information, again, that you're not getting in that context anywhere else. So it was great. And then one of the things that we've recently started doing, maybe 3 months ago, is the coffee clutch, which has been awesome. And basically, this is making good use of our webinar software. So we have this webinar software called Zoom that we use for our webinars. And then we realized, okay, this has another capability, which is to have a meeting where everybody's mic and everybody's cameras turned on and we can all just gather and talk. And it's kind of like the Brady Bunch, so you see everybody's squares or like Hollywood squares, and everyone can just talk. And so we started doing it kind of just let's experiment and see how it goes. And it's been one of, I think, a lot of members' favorite things because people can talk about things that they're concerned about, questions they have. We can celebrate successes together. And I've learned so much from being a part of those coffee clutches.
Yeah, me too. That we've got a lot of really great article ideas out of that. People have told us what they're interested in learning, and yeah, it's been really interesting to hear what people have. And then, so many people are so generous with the solutions that they share on there, and people talking about all the different online class software programs or programs that they are using and things like that.
Yeah, because we've got a lot of people who teach online in all different places, whether they're on Creative Bug or Craftsy or Skillshare or Creative Live, or they're doing it themselves through just something on their blog or through one of the other like Teachable, Rizuku. We've got people who do all of those things. And so, we had this great discussion about teaching online and how much money you can make, how do you set it up, how do you pitch it, all of that stuff. So that's been really terrific. And one of the other things for me that's been a highlight has just been seeing who becomes a member because we have the best members. So I said earlier we have 800 members, but they include some pretty darn cool people. And so I just wanted to say, Spoonflower is a member. I gave a huge cheer the other day because Nancy Zeman is a member, Pokey Bolton, Melanie Fallick, Mark Hill, who's the new CEO of the Craft and Hobby Association, is a member. Mary Fawns is a member. Do you have some other favorite members or just members that stick out to you like, oh my gosh, this is amazing that all of these people want to come together and share information?
Yeah, well, Jenny Rushmore, she's been super active in the forums and really helpful, I think, to people. Sarah Lawson was one of our, what do we call them? Our initial group of, they were basically like our beta testers and really helpful in helping us sort out the forums and things like that. And Jen Beeman, I've just met so many people too that I really didn't know, we have a lot of art quilters that have joined that are just so talented and they know so much and they are teaching classes and they're writing books and they're self-publishing. And so it's been really great to meet people from outside my regular, Sew Mama Sew community, people I know.
Yes. And also Suzanne Woods from who's the publisher of Lucky Spool, and Amy Marson, the publisher of C&T. And some of these companies, they brought on multiple staff members. So we have the marketing specialist from that company and so that's been wonderful to see and to be able to learn from their experience and have them mix in with people who are more on the newer, just starting out side of things, maybe have been in business for just a year or two and want to publish books and want to, manufacture products or just grow their Etsy shop or whatever. To be able to connect them with some of these leaders has been really wonderful. Okay, great. So any other highlights or things that you wanted to be sure we touch on?
Well, I just... I was just thinking about, I had this experience at Quilt Market, and I had a little meetup with some of our members. We went out to a little wine bar across the street from the convention center. And, we started talking about classes and things like that. So I'm excited for at some point in the future where we can actually do some kind of either we can teach at existing conferences, or we can have our own maybe meetup conference thing. I'm excited for that in the future. And we had that like in our business plan is like maybe after 2 years, we would try and do that. So I still have that in my head that, face-to-face meetings and classes is really important.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think it's something that we can definitely achieve for sure. And it's something that people really want. And even if it starts with our members speaking on panels at existing conferences, like speaking together on panels, and being able to offer members some of those opportunities and connections would be amazing. So I think it's coming.
Yeah, I do too.
For sure. Okay, great. So let's just talk about membership costs. So we really worked hard on keeping our costs to a point where we felt like all members, like all kinds of people who would want to become members of Craft Industry Alliance would be able to afford it. And so for a yearly membership, it's $60 for the year. And that includes all of those things that we talked about. And if you just want to do 6 months, it's $35, which I think is a really reasonable rate and something that even if you're just sort of in the beginning stages of your business, you can still afford and is a really good investment.
Yeah. And we do have a discount too for like multiple people at the same business. So they can just email me. Like there's some people who have a business and then they have a marketing or a social media person who's also a member. And so they get a discount on their membership for that.
Right. And that email would be Kristen@craftindustyalliance.org.
Yeah.
And so if you want to come and check out membership or see the website itself, it's craftindustyalliance.org, and you can see all the information there on our join page. And membership is open anytime. You do not need to be juried in or anything like that. But if you have any questions, you're not sure whether your business is the right fit, we will be happy to talk with you more and help you figure that out. And you can email hello@craftindustyalliance.org, and that goes to both Kristen and I, and we will respond to you. So, yeah, I hope that, people who listen to the Washington Apps podcast, I think it's a really natural fit. So I hope that this was informative and kind of helps you see what Craft Industry Alliance has to offer.
Yeah. One thing I don't want to forget to say too, is that every week or every other week when we have our journal out, that there's one article that is, open to the public. So most of our articles you have to be a member to read, but we do make one thing every week that's available. So if you go to our site and you look at the library and then journal, you can see all of our journal covers, so you can see the content of what we've written. And then if you click through on one of those articles will be available for you to read, so you can kind of get a taste for what we do.
Absolutely. And I will say, I think that was an important decision, because one of the things that we would like to be able to do is at times try to make some change in the industry. And so, for example, around Thanksgiving, I wrote an article about pay rates at International Quilt Festival. And I will say that was one of the highlights for me. I think that article was really important. And when I wrote that article, we made that the public article so that everybody, it's available anywhere online. Everybody can read it. And I'm excited to say that Quilts Inc., I think they were listening, and they did just maybe 2 months later, give their instructors a 33% pay raise, which was the first time in 17 years that those instructors have had a pay raise. And so it is through Craft Industry Alliance that we're able to do that kind of, sort of speaking as one about issues in the industry that we feel are important and pushing a little bit for change at times.
Yeah, that was really great. And there was a ton of comments, I don't really remember how many, but I remember so many people just sharing their own story about teaching and how important it was that all those comments were there in that one place with that article.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. So you'll be able to see that article, for example, in that issue around end of November of 2015, if you want to check that out as an example of one of the public articles. That's a great point. Okay, so visit craftindustyalliance.org, where you can see all the wonderful things we're just talking about today. And Kristen, thank you so much for joining me for this mini episode.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I hope you've enjoyed it. You've been listening to the Walshy Naps podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg, and I will see you next time.